Hey there folks, today I want to talk about how I've got my Sony Mirrorless camera set up for focusing, IAF and object tracking. Now, by default, when you purchase a Sony Mirrorless camera, the default setting for your focusing is actually set to wide, okay? Now what happens is, in the wide area focusing, you've got all of those little dancing squares and the camera tries to intelligently figure out what it's focusing on. So as we move left and right here, you can see that those little dancing squares everywhere are trying to focus on ever, and then it switches to me. But generally, that's where it's trying to focus, okay? The other thing that's sometimes not on by default is our IAF. So I'm coming to page 6 over here. This is specifically for the Sony A9, and I'm going to go in here and switch on the IAF, okay? Now, with wide area set and IAF set and face detect set, you can see that the system is now picking up on Amy's face there, and as I move left and right, it holds focus on Amy. All right, now the issue is, if I want someone else in the frame to be selected, I've got to actually reframe and put a subject in the center of the frame and then press and hold halfway on the shutter button to grab them. But now you'll notice that I'm obviously changing my framing. I'm going to do that again there forever. You can see the little white box appear over her face. I'm going to activate the IAF by holding down halfway on my shutter, and it's locked onto her. Okay. Now, this creates an issue when you've got a large hall full of people, for example, and you want to focus on one specific person off the center of the frame, and you don't want to have to reframe. All we need to do now is actually move away from the wide area focusing. Let's cruise down here to flexible spot S. Okay, there's two modes that I use on my camera: flexible tracking spot S and flexible spot S. Right, so let's have a look at flexible spot S. That's great because now I can point my focus point to a specific person in the frame here, hold down, and I've locked on focus. Now the issue is here, as I move away from my subject, or as that focus point moves away from my subject, IAF actually stops working, okay? Now, what you need to do is actually assign a button on the back of your camera to enable IAF to stick on that subject, okay? At the moment, I've got AEL on the back of my camera assigned to face tracking and IAF. So when I depress my AEL button on the back of my camera, now I can hold that focus on my subject, and the little green box will stay on Amy's face in this case, okay? Enabling me to actually move left and right and reframe the shot, or if she's in action, to follow her, okay? So I'm putting my focus point on my subject and then hitting down on the AEL on the back of my camera, and it's locking focus, and I'm reframing to wherever I want my subject to be in the frame, okay? The other way, of course, of doing this is coming back into our settings here and then going to what I like better is the tracking flexible spot S feature. Now, this is pretty cool because I can rotate my focus point. You see the red focus point here? I can point it to any object or subject in my frame. So let's say, for example, for whatever reason, I want to focus on those trees behind us. I can just press halfway on my shutter, lock in that focus, and it doesn't matter. I can move left and right now. The focus is being maintained on that area. I can move away from there and I can move on to Eva's face, for example, focus there, and then without pressing the AEL on the back of my camera, object tracking is enabled, and the camera system knows that it's got IAF and face tracking on that particular subject. So I can move left and right without having to press the AEL button on the back of the camera. And I can do this all the time. All right, I can put my focus point on me there, focus, move it left, right, or on my other subjects, wherever I want them to be, or whoever I want to focus on. And then I've locked in my focus right there. It's very, very simple, folks. So I know this works on my A7 III. I know this works on my A7 IV. It's working on my Sony A9. So I'm pretty sure that cameras from the A7 III series upwards will have these features enabled, okay? Of course, like I said, you can have AEL active. If your camera doesn't have object tracking, okay, then obviously you can go back to the flexible spot S option, right? And then obviously still working on the same principle. Okay, I can even leave my focus point in one place, and I can move my camera over the subject, press AEL on the back of my camera and lock in on them and move my camera around or reframe however I want it to be and hold focus on that subject. Okay, so like I said, I've got AEL assigned to face tracking and eye focusing. So when I depress it on the back of the camera here, we're locked in, and it's going to lock in on Amy. If I move right out of the screen here, it's going to try and find somebody else to focus on. There we go. If I let go of the AEL button, that focusing stops. Okay, so that means regular focusing is active now. But the trouble is I can't reframe there like I did with object tracking. So if I move back to object tracking and I want to focus on those trees in the back there, you can see now we've got a big, nice square, green square focusing on that area. So there you have it, folks. I hope this is going to help you guys set up your focusing properly on these cameras, and you'll be able to focus in particular or focus on particular people in a frame and not have any issues where it's just deciding to pick random faces in a crowd because it's got wide area focusing set and things start getting a little bit messy. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this session today, and I hope it's been informative for you guys out there who are new to the Sony mirrorless camera systems, and we'll see you in the next session. Cheers for now.